It's time to get up, Anya. I've already heard the alarm clock, but I ignored it because I don't care about anything. Anya! Anya! She taps me on the shoulder. What? It's time to get up, honey. It's 7:03. I don't move. Are you going to get up? Silence. Honey, it's time to go to school. I'm not going. Anya, you have to go to school. I ignore her. I know that she can't make me do anything. Eventually, she leaves. This happens every day. God is not afraid of death. Once, God woke up in the middle of the night and felt tired, as if God hadn't slept at all. And God wondered, did Kafka's Gregor Samsa really turn into an insect? Wouldn't it be more horrific if, actually, his physical appearance didn't change at all, and the whole thing was some sort of wild hallucination? This thought really disturbed God, so God got out of bed and went out the front door and took a walk out in the dewy neighborhood. And while God walked, God thought, I'm not actually omniscient or omnipotent or anything. It's not like that at all. Here, what is a river? Is a river any one particle of water, or is it the collection of the particles of water all together? So is the river one or many? The answer is both. So, does the river move, or do the particles move? In this way, I am just the name of the river, not the river itself. The river itself is all of the particles put together, but it doesn't exist. Anya's done with school for the day. She only had one morning class. Now she has the rest of the day to study and explore. She has a bunch of reading to do for her political science class, so she takes the 1 train up to 145th Street and gets out and walks over to Riverbank State Park. It's a terrible gray day, very windy. Autumn is really setting in, and it may even be winter soon. I pass all these people selling cheap goods and fruit all out in the open. Little flecks of paper and leaves and cigarette butts go tumbling through the air at the height of my knees. It's my first time at Riverbank State Park. I've dreamed this before, writing these words. So I take a stroll before I start reading. I end up down below the park, right beside the Hudson, sitting on a partially submerged rock. Although the day is windy and chilly, the waves are fairly calm. I sit here and eat an apple. When I'm finished with the apple, I throw the core into some bushes and just sit still, thinking about nothing, just feeling the breeze and listening to the waves. Unfortunately, it's one of those days where I have insects crawling up my skin, so I don't feel comfortable and I'm in no shape to meditate. So I look around all shifty-like, my eyes darting every which way, and I feel sad and tired. So I get up and walk back up to the main area of the park, where there are tennis courts and basketball courts and soccer fields. I'm up by the Lincoln Center, riding the bus, sipping a 3/4 empty cup of coffee, just sort of feeling ill and scattered. If I'm being honest, I don't really know what I'm up to. Yeah, I had class earlier, but it was kind of boring, and also, I'm feeling kind of walled in by New York. I feel like I should go somewhere, like for a weekend maybe in Jersey or upstate. Mind if I sit down? This dude is bending down, smiling at me, motioning to the spot directly next to me. I look around. There's literally a whole bus of empty seats. What?
Can I sit down next to you?
Why?
Let's talk. You don't have anything better to do.
Yeah, but who are you?
I'm God.
I look the dude up and down. Yeah, sure, all right, whatever. I sigh. So God sits down next to me. A cup of coffee materializes in his hand. He gives it to me in exchange for my nearly empty cup, and it's suddenly full again. God takes a big sip from it before chuckling.
Anya, let me tell you a story. We're in Iceland, and it's spring coming on. There hasn't been much snow this year, so the grass is lush. A silly sheep walks around atop the hill beyond the church. As Christopher looks up, he sees a thick fog beside the mountains and sighs. He's walking into town to get some eggs and milk and cheese and vegetables. It's about a mile to the grocer. As he walks, he thinks about his wife, which leads him to think about love. Does he love Kristen? Does he love her more or less than he loves driving fast down the highways, or just in a different way? And what of their children, Anna and Victor? Does he love tucking them in at night and reading them a bedtime story more or less than he loved being tucked in and read to when he was a child, or is it just different? And what of his congregation, the 30 or so charming families who come in every week and sometimes more? To hear what a man thinks about God, does he love them? Does he love standing above them, raising his arms and shouting with great passion? And what of himself, as he reaches the bottom of the dirt path and steps onto the black pavement? Does he love himself? Well, what would it mean to love himself? Would it mean to forgive himself for not being God? For not seeing all, knowing all, doing all? If so, then he'll gladly hang self-love and all other love if need be, and carry on with his burdens. Now Christopher walks stiffly down the gentle decline, passing the quaint homes on his left and right. He sees a clear night long ago. He had thought himself free then, free and pure. He had gazed at the stars and laughed to himself. But it wasn't a laugh, it was a plea to close his eyes and see the stars, to forget the difference between seeing and dreaming. I have not made it there yet, thinks Christopher sadly as he turns left onto the main street. And perhaps myself will never dissolve. Perhaps I will always be conscious of myself. Tell me, God. If you exist, tell me. If you cannot tell me, then you do not exist. Tell me, what is the difference between a me who is conscious and one who is unconscious? And by unconscious, I don't mean stupid. I mean that to an observer, how should it be proven that I am not, in the most fundamental sense, simply a product of chemical reactions and entropy? No, I want an answer. I don't want to be told I'm clever. I don't want you to dodge the question or gloss over it. I want to understand the real difference between myself and a table, or myself and a tree. I don't believe in consciousness. Look, here is some little old lady hobbling down the street in her wretched shawl and tattered shoes. How am I to know that she is self-aware? One can always be added to infinity. So if I am aware of myself being aware of myself, then I must be aware of myself being aware of myself being aware of myself, and so on forever. And I am brave enough to admit that I am not that aware. My consciousness has a limit. Therefore, I conclude that I am, in fact, simply asleep, simply unconscious. But then, God, you bastard, why don't I feel like it? I should not feel anything. I should not suffer nor enjoy. I should not hunger nor tire nor speak nor breathe. But look, I am waving my hands. I am blinking rapidly. I am having the experience of myself choosing to do these things, when in fact I do not choose to do them. Just
as I do not choose how to finish this sentence, but rather it all spills out of me as a consequence of my past experiences. Just like how a ball, once given the slightest push, will roll down a hill and continue rolling until it is acted upon by another force. The ball does nothing on its own. This is the most crucial problem of human existence. Why do I feel like a self when I am not a self? When I am only a machine? When I am only a slave? When I am only a ball? I know you will never answer me, God, for you too are a fool. You don't know the answer. You are just as much a prisoner as all of us. It must be true. If you are free, if you can truly love, then you are not a fool. You are the devil for withholding these gifts from your children. And I refuse to accept the explanation that I am insignificant from the perspective of God, for even God is insignificant from the perspective of God. It is my conviction that everyone is either tortured by this issue to the point of explosive suicide, or they are not thinking hard enough about it. There has never been an enlightened being in the history of the universe, nor can there ever be. One doesn't have to be enlightened to be kind or to be smart or to be spiritually nourished. To be enlightened is to know that one is dead, which is impossible, for when one is dead, then one must cease to know. Thus, our only course of action must be to all of us tear our clothes and hair, fall to the ground, and bitterly weep. Why? Why? Why am I an object trapped in the experience of subjectivity? And looking around and catching a glimpse of you, God, in our ranks, will make us weep still more in spite and rage at seeing your dry, guiltless eyes and knowing that you dwell in shit with the rest of us.
Christopher's standing in line with his basket of groceries, waiting to pay. The cashier is an old man with white hair, wrinkles, and a growth on his cheek, who smiles and jokes with each customer. When it's Christopher's time to pay, the cashier roars,
"Hey, minister! Boy, what an occasion! Made it out of your ivory tower to come see us lay folk, did ya? Came to buy some eggs and milk, did ya? Oh, Oscar, bet you didn't know ministers get hungry. Well, here's proof, boy, I tell ya."
He slaps his knee and claps his hands together beside himself with glee. Christopher smiles meekly, wishing he would shut up. "Say, minister," says the cashier with a devilish gleam, "what's the difference between a minister and a horse?"
"I don't know, John. What?"
"There are lots of differences, minister. You're telling me you can't think of a one?" John roars with laughter. "You didn't see that one coming, did ya, minister?" Christopher sighs, trying not to lose his temper. "Here's your change, minister. See you tomorrow." "Thank you, John. See you tomorrow, God willing." Christopher leaves the grocery store and starts for home, walking slowly. The sky is still gray, but turning darker as the sun sets, now almost the color of the pavement. Christopher sets down his goods and fastens up his coat. He's been feeling somewhat ill these days. He thinks of the tomorrow to which John referred. A funeral for an elderly lady, Anita, who died of pneumonia. The whole town will be there, and he, Christopher, will have to speak on the lady's behalf. She was a dry sort of woman. She did her work, raised 3 children, had a dog, went to church. Can Christopher think of anything special about her? The only thing that comes to mind is that she used to keep planters outside all her windows, and in the spring and summer she could be seen bending out the window to water them. Yes, that is very nice. He'll talk about that. But can he talk about just that? Of course not. It would seem like he had racked his brain for just a token memory, as if to prove that she hadn't been a complete bore, which is, of course, precisely what he had done. No, he must produce another sentimentalism. He tries to remember any dinners he and his family had shared with the Jorgensens, anything funny Anita had done in church. Wait, hang on, he sees it. A summer day. A day in all respects exquisite. He and Kristen took the children for a picnic at the little garden near the river. Anita and Magnus were there with their children, just there, among other families and couples, just sitting in peace as the breeze gently blew and the sun traversed through the sky, evoking color from the petaled flowers. Yes, that's just splendid. But his heart nearly stops beating. Is that what he, Kristen, and their children had looked like? Like a normal family, sitting together happily? It's not that the day wasn't sublime, it was. It's that Christopher didn't feel like a person with a body that day, not in the way that he remembers Anita and her family as essentially bodies and consequently emotions, thoughts, and personalities. He felt like essentially a personality and consequently a body. And further, because of his relation to his wife and children, he did not think of them as essentially bodies either. But because he did not know Anita and her family, they could only be strangers, strange blobs of flesh that happened to move and speak. Christopher tries not to think the rest of the way home, but he's unsuccessful. When he gets home, he avoids his family while making dinner for them all and is silent during their meal. He tucks his children into bed hastily and doesn't read to them. When he and Kristen lay down to sleep, he doesn't touch her or cuddle with her. He falls asleep, unable to sob, thinking only about how much of his life he's wasted on sleep, and how, even if he was awake, it would still be a waste. The next day, he oversleeps and is nearly late for the funeral, which is to take place at 10 in the morning. Kristen has to come in and rouse him, which almost never happens. He hurriedly takes a shower, brushes his teeth, and throws on his robes. He doesn't have enough time to defecate. He rushes over to the church through the imperceptible sunlight and begins preparing everything. People have already begun to arrive, so he has to pretend not to be in a rush, even though he very much is. They haven't even brought out all the flowers. The next quarter of an hour passes by in a blur, and finally, somehow, everything is ready, and most of the observers are here, sitting quietly, talking amongst themselves, going around to look at the posters with pictures of the deceased, or standing around the coffee dispenser. Christopher steps out into the hall, and a hush gradually falls over the congregation. Kristen, Anna, and Victor are, as always, sitting in the front row, gazing at Christopher with the utmost love and admiration.
My brothers and sisters, we are gathered here today to mourn the passing of our dearly beloved Anita Jorgensen.
He begins to feel his voice being carried away of its own accord. He starts to panic a bit. He's literally losing control over himself. He tries to will his voice this way or that, but to no avail. He can only observe as his voice strays farther and farther from his will.
But, brothers and sisters, let me ask you, why do we mourn the deaths of those we love? Why do we not instead, as other cultures do, congratulate them on having lived life to the fullest of their ability, even while under the pressure, yes, I say the pressure, of life itself? For do we not all suffer terribly at the hand of life and God? And who can say what awaits us after life? Therefore, verily I say unto thee, there is no heaven. Death itself, yes, death, which is the end of life, is heaven. There will be no ice cream shops in heaven, no virgins, no shining face of God to thrill you. There will only be nothing. Yes, nothing.
The congregation is nervously twittering.
Can you conceive of this nothing? Can you imagine yourself without senses? This is what awaits you after life. And this is promised to us all, whether saint or sinner. No more shall I preach the motive of a fictional God. No more shall I hold my tongue. I shall henceforth proclaim today and every day that there is no God but death, and life is the ocean of tears. Yes, the ocean of tears itself. No longer shall I hold my back erect, terrified to show that I am tired and crushed by its unfathomable depths. I shall... Blasphemy! This is blasphemy!
A young man's gone hysterical. He's jumped to his feet and points at Christopher, screaming, "Heretic! Antichrist! Devil worshipper!" Christopher recognizes him as Thomas Sveinson, a migrant from the capital.
How dare you insult me with that word? You know nothing of God. You have never suffered once, Thomas Sveinson, son of a government officer. Be quiet, and you shall learn the truth. You shall learn that life is not meant for happiness, but instead for a hopelessness so rotten and foul that it becomes ecstasy. You'll soon learn to slit your wrists in service of the Lord. You'll learn to... Shut up! Shut up! Be quiet! Atheist, deceiver, crook, child of Satan!
On its feet now, the congregation storms the podium and seizes Christopher. Not bothering to stone him or burn him, they trample him to death on the spot. All participate either by actively kicking him, jumping on him, and stomping on him, or by screaming abuse at large. All but Kristen, Anna, and Victor, who lurch over to the front doors and stand there for a few moments, staring in horror at the mob, before disappearing with frigid hearts into the tender dew.
We're way up in Harlem now. My coffee cup is still full, though I've been nursing it with fervor. God looks at me, laughing silently.
Let's get off here.
I obey, pulling the yellow cord to request a stop. We sit together in silence until the bus creaks to a halt. It's not too cold out, just a little breezy, not bad at all in my sweater and windbreaker. I'm overwhelmed by the chaotic streets. I feel a desperate urge to throw myself into the sewer. God catches hold of my waist and comes close to me, whispering in my ear.
Never mind all this. Do you remember the little glade down behind your house in Minnesota? Do you remember when you would go down there and there would be nothing at all?
Why do people have to make so much noise? Even when people want to relax, there has to be noise.
Well, for the same reason that I came to visit you. It's in our nature.
I don't say anything. I try to wriggle out of God's grasp, but God holds me firm.
I know you probably didn't like that answer, but there's not a better one to give. Why do the clouds rain? Why do the poor steal? Why do the cold shiver? Why does this universe exist? Take me back to your place. Let's make love.